we are all sharing opinions about fights. We are just like MMA journalists in one form or another. But recently, the idea of MMA journalism and what constitutes an MMA journalist has come under fire by like both fighters and promoters. Specifically, of course, I'm talking about Cub Swanson. Made a few tweets sharing his thoughts on MMA journalism. I think someone said something he didn't like, and he thinks that any MMA media, all MMA media should be required to have 3 amateur, I assume MMA fights, shrug emoji thoughts for our listeners on SoundCloud and Spotify. I feel there's a lot to say about this. I was actually talking to our mutual friend Raph about it earlier today. How you doing, Raph? And I wanted to kind of get your guys' take on where you think Cub's head's at and what you think he could mean by this.
I mean, those are 3 fights that you're risking CTE for, man. And then your words are slurring, and then you can't talk on the mic. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, look at Stephen A. Smith. He didn't really have to be in the NBA to be a commentator. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I lean towards that. Just like you said. I mean, you take it even one step further. Like John Danaher never fought. He's produced some of the greatest fighters in the world. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So like, just because you've never actually been in the ring or never actually been in a cage or never actually been on the jiu-jitsu mat doesn't mean you can't be a fan of an art. I think the problem is that there is a lack of legitimate journalism for mixed martial arts. It hasn't really made enough of an impression. They're huge, and we know about it because we're nerds. We love jiu-jitsu. We love fighting. This is what we do. But as far as the grand scheme of things, there hasn't ever really been a need for real journalists to be able to cover MMA fights. So what you're having now are people that are legitimate journalists that don't necessarily have the understanding of what mixed martial arts entails, so they can't give real life accounts of what fighting is. You talk about Max Kellerman. Max Kellerman is probably one of the best boxing guys out there. You know, he's amazing. He's great boxing. Burt Sugar, perfect example. You know, all these old school grimy freaking journalists, writers, like they never fought before, but they love the art of boxing. They love the art of fighting. They can appreciate what the carnal freaking struggle of getting in the ring and the ability to get there, how hard it is an actual fight is, and they can put that on the paper. We just don't have that yet, that fan base in MMA, and it's growing. I give Stephen A. Smith a pass, but dude, Stephen A. Smith is an idiot. Like I want to give him a pass, but he's just a fucking asshole, man. He doesn't know. Like he doesn't have a clue what the fuck he's talking about.
He should just stick to basketball, in my opinion. Like,
yeah, he shouldn't be covering MMA. They should yank it.
That's the thing, though. I think it's important to realize that he's made some beef takes between, like, you know, women's MMA and like his thoughts on who gives up during fights. Like, but I want to make it clear that he is a part of the biggest sports media organization on the planet, and he is one of the biggest faces in that organization. And I think that they have tried to add legitimacy to their purchase of the UFC by throwing some of their big faces at it to say, like, hey, look, Stephen A. Smith is now talking about MMA on the UFC card, so like it's cool now. And I get that he's got to do what they tell him. I'm not saying that he's never offered unprompted bad takes, but he is beholden to the mouse, more or less. And it's weird that you bring up Max Kellerman because he is one of the best minds in boxing, but like he actually pisses me off more than Stephen A. Smith because he said dumb things about MMA and he should know better. He's just like, you know, Conor McGregor is fighting Dustin Poirier, and Dustin Poirier is a grappler, and Conor is a striker, and typically grapplers beat strikers in this, and he's like kind of talking like a robot about it. I'm just like,
that, you know,
so typically Rock beats paper, so you know
the entirety of, you know, high level UFC MMA, to be honest with you, is only about 5 years old. Like we forget that. We think that it's just fucking, it's become this gargantuan thing, you know, this new freaking, you know, trend setting fucking thing that's all over the fucking world. But the reality of it is like, it's only been at that level for a short period of time. So there's not enough diehard, I use the word aficionados, To quote my Hemingway, by the way, just to show you how smart I am. Fucking, I know a thing or two there, Oxford. Right?
Yeah, Mr. Study Abroad.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't study abroad or anything like that, but but the point of the matter is there's not enough legitimate people that live, breathe, love, think nothing about MMA to be able to have real conversation on a high level journalistic volume or high level journalistic manner to talk about the UFC in that regard. So what you get now is this, and they're going to get better at the curve. Is going to become better, and I'm glad.
One of the points that when I was talking to Raf, he made is that no one wants to basically see two out of shape journalists double KO each other in the knockout in like the octagon.
I love you, Cub Swanson, but it's a stupid.
And he walked it back. He basically was trying to say, I want people to get that mindset and to have that experience. But we come into this job with different degrees of experience in combat sports. I'm a blue belt. Gian Carlo is a blue belt 2 times for some reason, and Kevin is a black belt with 3 Masters championships at brown belt. So I would love to ask you guys: do you think if any different, is there any difference in how you cover things because of your rank and your experience?
So
Gian Carlo first, yeah.
Sorry, I got like 1 amateur fight under my belt, but that's it. So I'm like 1/3 qualified, 1/3 qualified.
You're almost there.
Hey, Gian Carlo,
you almost get the Cub Swanson seal of approval. Hell, we'll get you on ESPN next weekend.
Hell yeah, Gian Carlo. If you pay me $50 and buy me some Chick-fil-A, you can beat the shit out of me 2 different times to get you straight rounded up,
bro. Likewise, because I love Chick-fil-A and I want to share that love for everyone.
Oh, hell yeah. We'll just go after the weigh-in.
Yeah, for sure, dude. Get that mac and cheese. That white cheddar is beautiful, dude. Anyways.
Hey, Gian Carlo, I'm 50 pounds overweight. Is that cool? You care?
It's all good, man. I don't care.
I just,
it's just really hard to measure passion when it comes to this sport, especially. Like people that, we've been training for how long? Like, I've been training for like 3 years, blue belt, but because I studied just the sport of it, the history of it, I've been following the sport for so long, it doesn't really measure my credit as a commentator or a person that is actually like covering this. Because I have commentated before, and there was a time where I was like, do I really deserve to be here? Like I didn't, pay my dues, and I never went and studied journalism, but I've been very passionate about the sport. I want people to be as passionate about the sport as I am, because I think it's the oldest sport ever is fighting.
Sure is. Yeah, I mean it's the most carnal of them too. It never changes. It's what we do. It's in our fucking DNA, and whether we want to deny it or not, that's part of what life is all about. That carnal confliction. You see, I talk about that all the time when I finish my jiu-jitsu classes, when I have my little post-mat speeches. I talk about the idea that, like, as human beings, as human natures, like, it's part of our freaking predetermined life that we fight for things. It's, we're living in a Darwinistic universe, whether we want to believe it or not. You know what I mean? Like, we could try our best to think of ways to politically correct that away. But the reality of it is inside of us, deep inside of our core, inside of our DNA, we still need that. We still have that desire to conquer and fight and do these things. And when you do jiu-jitsu, you do fighting in a controlled manner, you can get that out of your system, so you don't go out and end up in the jiu-jitsu times as a freaking
yeah, I mean, like you said, like fighting is it's basically an instinct. You see cats like play fighting all the time. They're practicing just in case something happens. I watch my cats fight all the time, just like play fighting. And I'm like, wow, they know more than I do. They do Imanari rolls. I barely can do one.
My buddy Jeff's cat, he throws on a little like mini hoodie to practice like Ezekiel chokes and like collar drags and whatnot. To put my spin on it, I was really fortunate to be able to go to college and I got a degree in journalism, and I'm a blue belt, so I feel like I've tried to go the quote unquote legit route in how I cover the sport. I entered college without knowing I'd be doing this, but I think that imposter syndrome, especially among like people that are trying to support a sport that you still got to kind of explain to people is it could be a lot. And if you are here, if you're covering the sport, if you're being in MMA media, odds are you love MMA. You're there because you love the sport. You're not there to make a ton of money, because there's not. You know, we're here knowing that we're pissing in the wind in a lot of ways.
In journalism in general, there's not a lot of money.
Yeah, but like, am I going to get more hits talking about the Mariners taking a shit on one weekend than I am a fight? Yes, for sure. I could talk about the Astros and that guy that threw balls at him and stuff like that, and the cheating thing. And there's a bigger built-in audience for that. You know, if you're doing journalism for MMA right now, it's because you care. It's because you love it. And obviously, there are going to be some assholes. There's some asshole journalists in every sport, and you gotta. I think it's up to us to weed them out, call them out. But I think to Mr. Swanson's point, I hear what he's saying, and I know that it comes from a desire to see the sport remain like legit for like those people that really love it, because until 20 years ago, it was a carnival sideshow, you know, it's really only recently been taken seriously by anyone. So I get that fear, and I get that someone probably pissed him off that day. And I'm sure he has a more nuanced opinion on the matter, but I just, to everybody, you don't need to go have 3 fights.